Hello, quick little seminar, little chat about science of weight loss. Try not to delve too deep into the science, just the essential facts. You've already looked at your goals. That's the key thing, the benefits, the outcomes. Now we need to get into a little bit of the what and why. I've got some foods in front of me. A tiny kind of history of weight loss and something I've experienced over the last couple of decades. You know, when I started in the industry 20 years ago, what we had was very much a big focus on low fat, low fat, low fat. An over focus on low fat. And what we did, when we focus on low fat, is we tend to then focus on what we perceive to be the next sort of healthy food group that fits in with the plan, and typically the most readily available as well. And that was carbohydrate. Now, what I'm looking at is someone that's on the program, or someone that's looking at nutrition for for weight loss, is that you've already sort of, as everyone has, you've thought of the obvious, and you've, as much as you can, either cut out what you feel you don't need, or you've really sort of minimised, the foods that you'd just be unhappy if you had to cut them completely out. You've known that, in order to get results, it's a case of very much having the smallest amount you can, on a weekly basis. So you've reached this point, which is, I've got the motivation, I know why I'm doing this, I know the healthy, the benefits that come into me at the end, I want those, and it's just a case of, tell me what to do, basically, or explain in simple terms, if I do X, then I'm on the road, I'm on the path to getting the benefits that I want. I've got the motivation to do it, just tell me what to do. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so, like I said, in the beginning, we had an over-focus on low fat. That meant we went low fat, high carbohydrate. Or carbohydrates, their role is energy, fuel. So the problem was that we were taking on board too much energy. And then what happens if we take on board too much energy? Our body stores the surplus over time. It creeps on, or body fat creeps on. And that's what a surplus of energy is. That's what body fat is, essentially, is a surplus of calories or energy consumed over time that we wear accumulatively. So, in going low fat meant that we had a big focus on these type foods. So I've got big jar of pasta. So we'd have pasta meals, thinking they were healthy, or they were going to assist us to our weight loss quests. Potato dishes being another one. So one over here. Good old cereal. Cereal being another one, really quick for breakfast. Milk in a bowl, away you go. And bread. I just happened to have to illustrate the point, I guess. More to the fact that was what was in the bread bin for the children. Fruit loaf. So, high energy foods. That was the key. So we very much went high carbs, low fat, and an over focus on eliminating fat from our eating plans, if you like. Now the key is the after effects of having more fuel than we need. So in the carbohydrate group, the examples there are these are the most high energy foods, high energy carbohydrates. That's the key. That's one of their roles, or their main roles, if you like, in our nutrition plan. They provide us with energy. But the key is that we only need, and we can only process, depending on our genetic makeup, depending on our metabolism, we can only process a certain amount of fuel per meal. And even a modest portion of things like cereal and bread and pasta and potato, rice being another. The problem is that for most of us, we can only process so much per meal. Then we have a surplus. And that's the key. Where's the surplus going over time? Well, the surplus, as we've said, is being stored. Being stored as body fat. And if I go deeper into the science, we can go into hormones. If you can imagine, if someone's consuming, even in the government guidelines used to and still state, I believe, that the ideal ratio is to have, I think it's 60 to 70% of our daily intake from carbohydrate. So if we're consuming these type foods at every meal, our blood sugar, if you can imagine, is spiking. When you get a big blood sugar spike, it goes up. And then the body processes what we need. The fuel that we need, that's fine. Insulin's the hormone that's released. In it goes into the bloodstream, takes the fuel, with the fuel, it basically takes what it needs. That's stored, what's called glycogen. That's stored for energy needs, stored in muscle, ready for usage. That's fine. That's going to be processed. And as we know, what's processed is not going to be stored. Job done. However, if there's a surplus, if there's a big blood sugar spike, the surplus that's not needed, the surplus that's not going into, for usage, for immediate energy usage, is going to be stored. Back to the same scenario again. How do we store energy that's not needed there and then short term? Body fat. That's the key. That's how we put on weight. And obviously in previous chapters I've tried to look at the difference and distinguish the difference between body weight and body fat. Body fat is the component that's going to have the most effect on how we look and how we feel and our health, for that matter. So that's the key. We get a big blood sugar spike anytime there's a meal that's high in high energy carbohydrate. That's the key, and this is the list. So the key then, if we know that by eating these foods regularly and often, our blood sugar is going to be going up and down, and by releasing the hormone insulin that unlocks the fuel and what we don't need goes into storage, we're promoting fat storing. That's what we're doing in terms of that kind of those eating habits. We're promoting fat storage. That's the key. Now, the key for me, and I sort of learned this information maybe a decade ago, and in the industry, it's it's not rocket science. It comes back to basics. This was the only thing for me over the 20 years that made us think a little bit deeper. As an exercise expert as well, in terms of how we move, it all goes back to, and the science and the ins and outs goes back to the fact that the human body is millions of years old. That's the key. It gives us clues as to our genetic design. And yes, I know that was a long time ago, but in terms of evolution doesn't work that fast. So we're still designed to do these things. We've still got the same makeup. We've still got fight or flight. In this modern day world, what do we need fight or flight for, is the question. We haven't changed, is the point I guess I'm making. The same when it comes to how we move, and certainly the same when it comes to our nutrition, our eating habits. So the key is, I remember at the beginning I said, by this point you probably have got rid of the obvious foods, the foods that are not conducive to having regularly and getting leaner, losing body fat, losing weight. The reason why is because all of those foods contain a lot of processed ingredients. They're very high processed fat, they're very high sugar. And all of these foods the body does not need in any kind of amount. And when we do, it affects our health, but in relation to this program, it's affecting our storage. It's teaching us to store body fat, essentially. A big surplus of stored energy. That being the key. So the opposite of that is true, is if we want to be leaner, it's all about foods that have the lowest ingredient list. It's about foods that have been around for since the dawn of time. I guess in the industry, that's where paleo has its place. The only where I sort of disagree with things like paleo, if you're not sure, paleo, or the time in the time period that I can never pronounce, Paleolithic, I think it's called, if I pronounce that right, caveman times. And it basically means that nature provides us with all the foods and the energy and the nutrients that we need. That's the key. So, rather boringly, I've got the broccoli, vegetables, peppers in this case. I've got it, and even to illustrate portion size, there you go, there's my snack for later. Cashew nuts, so a small portion of those. I mean, bananas you can say are high energy. So if you're high energy fruit, if you're trying to get leaner, one of these probably contains near the amount of fuel that you can process in one go. But if I was having a small banana with the nuts, or half a banana and the nuts, perfect snack. Or even, and to illustrate the point, I mean, this literally is my lunch for today. I mean, ideally you'd have, meat-wise, you can say, I've got ham and I've got lean cuts of beef, but you could say, to go one step further, these are probably preserved cold meats. I could probably have gone one step further to illustrate the point and gone even more natural than that, and there's spinach in there and there's cucumber in there. Even hummus. I don't know if hummus fits into paleo. This is the thing. Paleo inspired is a lovely term, meaning that the idea of paleo is that we should be eating the very foods that we're designed to eat, because that will, as you'll see, that health wise, and it promotes fat burning. I'll explain why in a second, and how it's the opposite of the high energy foods. But paleo, I guess if you want to, is maybe there's too much of a focus on meat, whilst I get the vegetables are the most nutritious foods, if you like, and vitamins and minerals, etc. And they're a carbohydrate. That's the key. So is fruit. Vegetables, fruit are carbohydrates, but certainly with the vegetables, the fuel is incredibly low. You're going to be having moderate fuel. So the message here is get as much of your carbohydrates from vegetables and some fruit as you can. That's the key. But paleo inspired because it's back to that nature provides. That's what we're designed to eat. Have the foods with the smallest amount of ingredients. That's the key, and then balance the foods as well. So not sort of high energy heavy. And the science behind it is quite simply that if you're stabilizing blood sugar, that's the key. So rather than, remember the illustration was the blood sugar spike, that happening through the day, so insulin being released, promoting fat storage. Whilst if we're stabilizing blood sugar, if we're having low or moderate energy carbohydrates, and we're combining that with a healthy lean source of protein, and we've got things like nuts in, or fish is another one that you've got protein and you've got healthy fats. And healthy fats, unhealthy fats, okay, what's the difference? Unhealthy fat typically is a processed fat, or is a fat that we really don't need in any kind of amount, if at all. And a healthy fat is one that we need, and fat, remember, is many more calories per gram than carbohydrates. Protein, well, more than double. So fat, it's a nutrient we need sparingly, if you like. But we need a certain amount of healthy fat. There's vitamins that are fat soluble off the top of my head. A, E, I haven't got any notes, I promise. A, E, D, and K, I think they're the fat soluble for hormone production, insulation. There's reasons why fat is important, if you like. But like I said, we don't need that much. It's calorie laden. But if we've got a good balance of carbohydrate, we've moderated our carbohydrates. We've got as much from vegetables and some fruit as possible. We've got lean protein in there. For the vegetarians, a vegetarian sorts of protein. Things like nuts and fish, some of the oils, so that we're getting our healthy fat as well. It's more balanced. Our blood sugar then typically looks a bit more like this. We're stabilizing blood sugar. And when we stabilize blood sugar, the body's saying, and this is important, the body's saying that there's some fuel there. but essentially, the body may need to find more fuel from elsewhere if we're moderating the energy. This is the whole key. Here comes the sentence. If our primary goal is to lose weight, if our primary goal is to decrease our stored energy or body fat, that's our body's secondary fuel. So what we've then got to do to burn, if you like, or use our secondary fuel is to moderate our primary fuel or carbohydrate. That's the key. When we moderate our primary fuel, and this is not cutting down completely, that never works. It's never a long-term solution to go low calorie or low anything. It's not an ongoing plan at all, health-wise, even promoting fast metabolism. The body's clever. The body holds on to a supply, holds on to a source of what we're not giving it, if that makes sense. But the key is when we stabilize blood sugar, we're releasing a different hormone that's less well known called glucagon. Glucagon's job is to go into the fat cells to turn them into energy. And if that's happening over time, there's no quick fix. I wish there was. But if that's happening over time, we get leaner. That's the way it works. It's not a fast process by any means, but putting on body fat's not essentially a fast process either. Like I said earlier, body fat creeps on, and we can, if we've got the right nutrition plan, body fat can creep off. But that's the key. We've got to be using our secondary fuel, our body fat. We've got to be using that for energy. That's the key. So we've got to be looking at natural foods and small portions, eating moderate portions and often of natural foods, because then that means that we're giving our body a great supply of nutrients, we're giving our body some energy and the energy that it needs, and then if it needs to top up that energy, then it can go into the fat stores and turn that into energy, and that's what we want to happen. That is the be-all and end-all of weight loss. That's the only way it happens, is that we, apart from something drastic, is that we use it as a source of fuel, and that's the key. And the only way is to moderate or to stabilize, that's a better word, to stabilize our blood sugar. That's the key. By stabilizing our blood sugar, we release a hormone that promotes fat burning, essentially. That's the key. And in simple terms, it means if that's the amount of fuel we're getting, what we actually need is slightly less. And doing that per meal, and when we've got things like protein and even healthy fat in a meal, and the balance is shifted, so carbohydrates probably always going to be the higher percentage of the foods. If you imagine a plate, it's always going to be the biggest percentage, just about, but it balances. The key where we've got the protein, healthy protein, and healthy fat. The protein, the healthy fat, because the digestive process, because the reaction, if you like, or the way it goes into the body, it slows the blood sugar spike. It helps to stabilize blood sugar, and that's the key. Blood sugar stabilization, moderating our body's primary energy source, so that the body will use its secondary energy source or body fat over time. And I guess it's making the healthy stuff, the more you can create the right ratio as much of the time as possible. Obviously this is an area of mine, if you like, in nutrition and having a healthy lifestyle myself. But I'm not going to sit here and say that mine is 100% of the time I'm only eating the good stuff. 100%. That's all I do. Every day I wake up 100%. It's got to be a long-term plan. That's the thing. It's got to be something that can fit in. For this to be a permanent thing, to be a long-term thing, it's got to be something that you can do over time. It's not a quick fix. A quick fix is basically something. You're going back to your yo-yoing. A quick fix is I'm gonna completely decrease everything, or your old sort of low-calorie diets, or everything's too low, and then the body slows its metabolism. The body's clever. The body's in X million years we've been on this planet, the body's had to deal a lot more with scarcity than it has abundance. That's the key. So it's very, very accustomed and trained, if you like, to deal with scarcity. And the way the body deals with scarcity is to kind of slow metabolism. Why is it slow metabolism? Because the body's saying it doesn't know where food comes from. This is the key. The body's millions of years old. It only knows food's in abundance because of your nutrition habits. So whenever you hold anything back, or if calories are too low, the body says at this point in time there's a shortage going on, and the body's all about short-term survival. So the way the body counteracts what it perceives to be a shortage is to slow metabolism down, which means the survival rate will be better. I mean, if you ever lost weight quickly, a lot of the time it's not just body fat you're losing, you're dehydrating as everything slows down, you're losing muscle, that's two things at once. If you lose muscle, if that can be broken down and used for energy, then the body, because muscle is the most metabolically active tissue we have, so if you've got less of that over time, then you won't need to find as many calories. That's the key. That's what the body is doing. Two things at once. Use the muscle for energy, and then over time, slow the metabolism. Less muscle means slower metabolism, not as many calories needed. But as soon as you go back to, because if it's unsustainable, and this is the key, making this long term is the most important thing. So if we can't sustain it, that means we change our eating plan and we probably go back to more calories. So what the body's done is decreased its metabolism. That's how many calories it needs per day now. And great chance when we go back to what we're doing, where there's going to be a surplus. We're going to put in more than we need, and the body's going to say, great. This also enables me to go into fat storing mode, to store, so that in time I'm better able to cope should there be another shortage in the future. So we almost need to give the body that sort of abundance mentality. And for me, one of the best ways to do that is one reason, another main reason is that even with this healthy stuff, if we have too big a portion, we can still have too much. And too much of anything, we're trying to promote the nutrients that stabilize blood sugar, but too much of anything, even the healthy stuff, anything that there's a surplus, the body will store for later. How does it do that? Well, we're back to body fat storage. That's the key. So it's moderate, balanced portions, eating every 2 to 4 hours, where time allows. That fires the metabolism, and it ensures that we're not overeating. We're getting balanced nutrients, and the body can process them at one time. That's the key. As I said before, if the body's processing, it's not storing. Or even better, if the body's then, because we're moderating our primary fuel, if it's going into our secondary fuel and turning that into body fat, remember, and turning that into fuel, if that's an ongoing thing, we're going to get leaner. But it's got to be made into a long-term plan. It's got to be, where you reach that point where it just fits. You've got an understanding of what balanced nutrition is. You kind of know the food groups that you need to moderate as much as possible, and you know the food groups that you can have in abundance, moderate portions. But that's the key. It's where it fits. That's the ongoing, and obviously hydration is part of this too for health, and indirectly speeds up metabolism. But that's the key. It's a long-term process. It's not a quick fix. You're going to be able to say, yes, I can continue to do this. And by doing that, in making this a natural thing, making this a lifestyle, making this unconscious, if you like, where you do this completely, like getting in your car if you drive. Second nature. That's where the big things happen. That's where you can get results without really having to think about it. And that's where, going beyond just getting a result, it should be about making this a long-term thing where you are in control. So when you've got that result, it's a case of don't relax entirely, kind of keep doing the things that got you the result until they become second nature. That's the key. But lastly, it's about, the obvious. Number one, the foods that can't be part in abundance can't be part of your food plan if you're serious about getting results. Then next, it's the high energy carbohydrates. We've got to moderate our body's primary fuel so that it burns and uses our body's secondary fuel or carbohydrate. That's the key. We've got to change the balance. For too long, we've been taught that carbohydrate should be a big percentage of our meal. No, if you want the numbers 40% carbohydrates, a great number to go by. Use your plate. So 40% of that is ideally vegetables, and obviously you can include some fruits as well. Things like berries are great on the berries. Typically are quite low fuel. Again, we're looking moderate portions. The healthy lean protein at 30% and 30% healthy fat. The healthy fat tends to take care of itself. Healthy fat's in protein a lot of the time. As we said, fish, nuts, oils, it will take care of itself. But getting the balance right, getting the portion right, portion size, moderate and often, making this long term, that's the key. That means the body will then be using body fat as a source of fuel. We can lose, at the rate, if we do all this right and get the ratio of good stuff to bad, a great ratio, then you can lose 1 to 2 pounds or 0.5 to 1 kg of body fat. This is not weight, this goes deeper. Body fat per week. That's the key. But your nutrition is 70 to 80% of that result. The rest can be down to exercise, but nutrition is the key. Get that right, you'll get the results you want. Thank you very much.